Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Rewired Fest 2023. This is one of the most top-heavy events that I have potentially ever seen in Smash Ultimate. For our top 16 seeds, you're going to have Rocky, Maruko, or Marvelous Marco, Justin 23, and Deathspade in 13th, Beastly, Beast Mode Paul, Atomic, and Henry Luma in 9th. In 7th, you're going to have Shattuck and Quandale Dingalingleton, though Shattuck is going to be DQing. You're going to have Mars and Apollo Kage in 5th, Mudace in 4th, Light in 3rd, Glutoni in 2nd, and Spargo as the first seed. As I already mentioned, this event's insanely top-heavy, so I don't foresee too many upsets happening this time around. A couple I could see before winner's quarters would be Atomic over Quandale, Beast Mode Paul over Apollo Kage, and Deathspade over Glutoni. Now, for Atomic and Quandale, Atomic is coming from Texas, and they have a lot of very strong Steve players in that region, but also, I think Steve is kind of banned in that region, so I don't really know how in practice he is, but that's a discussion for another time. Rob is a character that I actually think does pretty well into Steve, and Atomic is good enough. We don't get to see him at a ton of events, but when he does go to stuff, he's put up performances that give me enough confidence to think that he can beat Quandale, so that's an upset I could definitely see. Beast Mode Paul over Apollo Kage, I could 100% see. I think Hero and Sephiroth both go even with Snake, but they're very weird characters, especially Hero. If you're not ready for Hero, you could get absolutely caught off guard, and Beast Mode Paul was looking incredible at the Lit Potential, so if he's able to play like he was there, I could foresee him beating Apollo Kage. Now, it's not going to be easy, and Apollo Kage is definitely going to be prepped for the matchup, but even if you're prepped for Hero, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get thwacked at 50 and just die anyway. And finally, you're going to have Glutoni and Deathspade. Now, Glutoni, he's struggled versus Bloom in the past, and to be fair, Bloom's a top 20 player in the world, but a large reason for that is because Bloom Forever, or rather Glutoni, cannot SDI, or he doesn't SDI because it really hurts his hands. Now, I do think that that's been getting a little bit better for him, and his hands have been better, so maybe not as big of a factor this time around, but it is something to consider. He's lost to Bayonetta in the past, and Deathspade is an extremely talented player. He also has the Sora counterpick, which I can see being an option. I think Deathspade can take out Glutoni, but there's also the counter argument of, yeah, Glutoni has a ton of reps versus the best Bayonetta player in the world, so it could be an absolute wash, but I think it's going to be a pretty interesting set. Also, I should mention that since Shattuck is DQing, it's most likely that Cannon Red is going to replace him. If you don't know who Cannon Red is, he's the OG Puff player, and I do still favor Beastly in that matchup. I think Diddy Kong does pretty well into Puff, and Puff overall just isn't a super good character, but you definitely can give Diddy off stage. You also just have Rest as a really strong X factor at all times, so I don't really know how that matchup is going to play out, but I would favor Beastly. Now, for our top 8 qualifiers, we're going to have Spargo versus either Quandale or Atomic. There definitely is a possibility that Maruko could pull off the upset, but Spargo is the second best player in the world, and while I think Maruko is really good, he is still playing Toon Link, which is not a character that I have a lot of faith in, so I would expect Spargo to make it there, and if it's Spargo versus Quandale, absolutely Spargo's winning that. No offense to Quandale, but his secondaries are going to have to be pretty good if he wants to beat Spargo. And Atomic, again, I do favor Spargo in that set. Spargo has a lot of good wins on good raw players like Zomba, like MK Big Boss, so I would favor him to get into top 8. He's the first seed, not that crazy. Then you're going to have likely Mudace versus Mars. Now, I don't really know how Mars is going to be playing. I never know how Mars is going to be playing because we just don't really see him at events, but every single time that we've seen him this year, he has looked phenomenal. And Mudace, he's a inconsistent player, just at heart. He's playing Peach, he has hand issues, he just isn't super consistent. But also, Mars hasn't beat Mudace in the post-quarantine era. I believe Mudace won it at main stage, and Big House maybe another time as well. So it's not a great draw for Mars, but it really does just come down to form, especially of players like this caliber. Mars can beat literally anyone in the world, but that doesn't mean he's necessarily going to. So it's going to be a banger set. Not really sure how it's going to unfold, but Mudace is obviously going to be the favorite, just considering that he has more reps under his belt as of late, as well as the record overall in the post-quarantine, so gonna pick Mudace there. Then you're gonna have Glutoni versus most likely Beastly, and considering that Glutoni just beat Tweak and Terra and overall has been doing very good versus him the entire year, I would heavy favor Glutoni going into the set. Now, there's definitely a possibility that Beastly's style of Diddy Kong is different enough that maybe throws Gluto off, but I don't necessarily think that's going to be enough. And then finally, we're going to have Light versus Apollo Kage. Now, it's really difficult for me to count out Apollo Kage, but Light is incredible versus Snake, and I think Fox is a character that can rush Snake down enough, especially if you're in control of his grenades, where it just gets extremely smothering. No, it also could be Beast Mode Paul, but I think Fox absolutely destroys Hero and Sephiroth, so I wouldn't be too worried about those matchups, but as I said, you can't ever count Apollo Kage out, but I wouldn't favor him. Also, just so I don't get torn apart in the comments, I definitely don't think that Fox versus Hero and Sephiroth is unwinnable, but I would have Fox as +1 on both of those characters. And then for Snake versus Fox, I would still have the matchup as even overall, but the pressure can be really difficult for Snake. And as per usual, we're not looking at the losers bracket just because they are so fickle typically. And as I've mentioned for the third time in this video, since this event was so top heavy, I haven't picked 20 players and I've changed the percentages a little bit. Very confident in these picks: Spargo, Light, Mutace, and Gluttony. You have the somewhat confidence here with Mars, Apollo, Kage, Quandale, and Beastly. These are just the players that I think are going to top 8. To the loser side, you have the could happen tier with Beast Mode, Paul, Deathspade, Rocky, and Henry Luma. These are all players that we've seen some really strong things from, specifically Deathspade and Beast Mode, Paul. Deathspade, I mean, if he somehow gets Apollo Kage in his bracket, the last time they played, he kind of gave him the works. He looks incredible in that matchup. He's clearly very practiced in it. So I definitely think there's a possibility that Beast Mode Paul or Deathspade can make some upsets, as well as Rocky and Henry Luma, but they would probably be my more favorite picks of the two. And then you have the perchance here with Justin23, Super Barry, Danby, and Maruko. Now, I could see arguments for Justin23 actually being in this tier. I'm just personally less familiar with him, so I don't want to give full confidence when I'm not super sure how he's going to perform. For reference, he plays Yoshi, which is honestly a really scary character in the meta right now. You're going to have Super Barry on that Mii brawler, and I need him to perform so I can push some propaganda. This character is broken, and Super Barry is probably the best solo made brawler in the US. I kind of want to say Esam's the best in the US, but he doesn't compete a ton, and also he's using that character as like a tertiary or secondary. I don't even know who he's been playing at this point, but that's off topic. I think Super Barry can perform. Danby's a player that's had some incredible performances, and Maruko's also has some really high highs, but as I stated earlier on, I personally don't think Toon Link's good, but that doesn't really matter what I think if he's just going to win anyway, so we'll have to see how that plays out. And you have the great return of Cannon Red. People forgot how good this guy was, and yeah, Base Mage is doing really good, and Senra beat the best player in the world, but Cannon Red at this event is going to reclaim his title as the best Jigglypuff in the world by top 8ing. And we have our top 8. As per usual, we're just going to be talking about the projected seeds, except we're going to switch out Shattuck for Beastly because, you know, Shattuck's DQing. In the winner side, you're going to have Spargo versus Mutace. Now, this is a very interesting one because Spargo and Mutace haven't played since Battle of the BC, where Spargo did take it. But prior to that, Mutace had a flawless record on him. And I don't think Peach is insanely good versus Cloud. Cloud might even win that matchup. But Mutace is just phenomenal at it, and his spacing, even against Spargo's speed, is just so good. So I am going to be favoring him because he normally does win it, but it's a very slight favor, like 51% to 49%. It could go either way. You're going to have Gluttony versus Light. Now, they played twice in 2023, both of them going Gluttony's way, one at Let's Make Big Moves and one really recently at Terra. But I'm still going to go with Light on this one because he's been saying he's been playing phenomenal as of late, and I have to agree with him. He has been looking incredible in these past couple tournaments. Now, if you had to name a player that's maybe been playing better than Light, Gluttony would be on the list considering that he just won Terra, beating Light, beating Spargo, beating Tweak, but I think Light's going to have the home turf advantage this time around and get his first win over Gluttony in 2023. In the loser side, you're going to have Mars versus Quandale Dingalingleton. Now, this one, definitely super favorite for Mars here considering that he beat Pocket at SmashCon. I think Zero Suit does really well into Steve, and the reason for that is because I watched Mars versus Pocket, and his proficiency in that matchup is phenomenal. So unless Quandale has some crazy secondaries or does something completely different than Pocket did, which is definitely possible, Steve is a character that you can mix up your playstyles enough where it's really confusing to play from Steve to Steve. I think Mars is going to be the heavy favorite here. Then you're going to have Apollo Kage versus Beastly. Now, Beastly does have other characters, but if he's playing someone as good as Apollo Kage, I think he should stay on the Diddy Kong, and I don't think that's a super great draw for Diddy Kong. I just think Snake does a lot of things really well in that matchup, and I'm going to favor Apollo Kage to take it. Editing for block here, like Gluttony, I've actually played 3 times in 2023. The one that I forgot was Battle of BC5, and the reason I forgot is because Light was not playing super good at that event, so I just kind of pretend like he wasn't there. So my bad, not really changing my answer though. I still think Light's going to take it. So in the loser side, you're going to have Mars versus Gluttony and Apollo Kage versus Spargo. Now for Mars Gluttony, they've traded sets in 2023 with a slight favor to Gluto, playing at Genesis for Gluto wins it, and trading sets at Kawaii-Con, Mars winning in the winner's side and Gluttony winning in the loser's side. And I think this is going to be a very competitive set, but I am going to favor Glutzy here just considering he has won it more in 2023, as well as I feel like it would be a massive disservice to have him out at 5th place after he just won Terra. He's coming into this event with an insane amount of momentum, and the fact that he's already in the loser side is probably criminal enough for most of you, so I'm going to say that Glutzy moves on just to avoid the controversy. Then you're going to have Apollo Kage versus Spargo. Now, I think Spargo is one of the scariest players in the world when you're a Snake player. The fact that he is just so fast, arguably the fastest player in the world, with Cloud back air, it is just not fun for Snake players. Now, Apollo Kage, he's done the impossible on multiple occasions, but it's going to be an uphill battle for sure. So we got our top 4, Light versus Mutes in the winner's side and Spargo Glutzy in the loser's side. Now for Light Mutes, Light's definitely going to be my favorite going into this one. They're even in 2023, Mutes winning a set at Genesis and Light winning a set really recently at Cirque du CFL 2, but Mutes is playing like untouchable at Genesis, and unless he's at that peak, which I don't think he will be, and by the way, if he's at that peak, he's definitely going to win this event, but like, I don't think he'll be at that peak, and I think if both players are just playing well, I would favor Light going into that one, so I'm going to say that Light takes it. Then in the loser side, you're going to have Spargo versus Glutzy. Now, you can say a lot of things about Spargo, but if there's one thing that's for sure, this guy does not like losing. And him and Glutzy have been fairly even in 2023. Most recently, you have Spargo taking it at Delfino Mazza and Glutzy taking it at Terra. And you know that Spargo's not happy about that. So I think he's been grinding this matchup super hard. And he's going to be able to take it. But honestly, it's going to be more of a 50-50 matchup than I'm making it. The sets between those guys are always super competitive and really, really good sets as well. So excited to see how that unfolds. Then you're going to have the run back of Spargo versus Mutes. And as I just mentioned, Spargo hates losing. And he's going to have that fire from beating Glutzy. Manages to get the run back versus Mutes and get into the grand finals versus Light. Now, Spargo and Light have played twice in 2023. You have Light winning it at Genesis and Spargo winning it at Gommel. So I'm going to say that Spargo wins the first set, but Light wins Rewired Fest 2023. And this is going to be the beginning of Light becoming the best player in America again. It's a really close race right now between him, Zomba, and Tweak. And I think Light has been looking phenomenal. He's getting better every single tournament. And if he's able to win this one, I think it is going to absolutely snowball for him. And I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the support. It's been absolutely unreal as of late. If I left out your favorite player, something I got wrong, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment down below. Be sure to sub, all that yada yada, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.